Praise the Lord. According to 1 Year Bible Reading Plan Day 132, we have Esther chapters 1 to 5. Esther chapter 1. From his royal throne in Persia's capital city of Susa, King Xerxes ruled 127 provinces, all the way from India to Ethiopia. In the 3rd year of his reign, he gave a banquet for all his officials and administrators. The armies of Persia and Media were present, as well as the governors and noblemen of the provinces. For 6 whole months, he made a show of the riches of the imperial court with all its splendor and majesty. After that, the king gave a banquet for all the people in the capital city of Susa, rich and poor alike. It lasted a whole week and was held in the gardens of the royal palace. The courtyard there was decorated with blue and white cotton curtains tied by cords of fine purple linen to silver rings on marble columns. Couches made of gold and silver had been placed in the courtyard, which was paved with white marble, red feldspar, shining mother of pearl, and blue turquoise. Drinks were served in gold cups, no two of them alike, and the king was generous with the royal wine. There were no limits on the drinks. The king had given orders to the palace servants that everyone could have as much as they wanted. Meanwhile, inside the royal palace, Queen Vashti was giving a banquet for the women. On the 7th day of his banquet, the king was drinking and feeling happy. So he called in the 7 eunuchs who were his personal servants: Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcass. He ordered them to bring in Queen Vashti wearing her royal crown. The queen was a beautiful woman, and the king wanted to show off her beauty to the officials and all his guests. But when the servants told Queen Vashti of the king's command, she refused to come. This made the king furious. Now, it was the king's custom to ask for expert opinion on questions of law and order. So he called for his advisers, who would know what should be done. Those he most often turned to advice were Karshena, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsena, and Memucan, 7 officials of Persian Media who held the highest offices in the kingdom. He said to these men, I, King Xerxes, sent my servants to King Vashti with a command, and she refused to obey it. What does the law say that we should do with her? Then Memucan declared to the king and his officials, Queen Vashti has insulted not only the king, but also his officials. In fact, every man in the empire. Every woman in the empire will start looking down on her husband as soon as she hears what the queen has done. They'll say, King Xerxes commanded Queen Vashti to come to him, and she refused. When the wives of the royal officials of Persia and Media heard about the queen's behavior, they will be telling their husbands about it before the day is out. Wives everywhere will have no respect for their husbands, and husbands will be angry with their wives. If it please your majesty, issue a royal proclamation that Vashti may never appear before the king. Have it written into the laws of Persia and Media, so that it can never be changed. Then give her place as queen to some better woman. When your proclamation is made known all over this huge empire, every woman will treat her husband with proper respect, whether he is rich or poor. The king and his officials liked this idea, and the king did what Memucan suggested. To each of the royal provinces he sent a message in the language and the system of writing to that province, saying that every husband should be the master of his home and speak with final authority. Esther chapter 2. Later, even after the king's anger had cooled down, he kept thinking about what Vashti had done and about his proclamation against her. So some of the king's advisers who were close to him suggested, "Why don't you make a search to find some beautiful young virgins? You can appoint officials in every province of the empire and have them bring all these beautiful young women to your harem area in Susa, the capital city. Put them in the care of Haggai, the eunuch who is in charge of your women, and let them be given a beauty treatment. Then take the young woman you like best and make her queen in Vashti's place." The king thought this was a good advice, so he followed it. There in Susa lived a Jew named Mordecai, son of Jair. He was from the tribe of Benjamin and was a descendant of Kish and Shimei. When King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon took King Jehoiachin of Judah into exile from Jerusalem, along with a group of captives, Mordecai was among them. He had a cousin, Esther, whose Hebrew name was Hadassah. She was a beautiful young woman and had a good figure. At the death of her parents, Mordecai had adopted her and brought her up as his own daughter. When the king had issued his new proclamation and many young women were being brought to Susa, Esther was among them. She too was put in the royal palace in the care of Haggai, who had charge of the harem. Haggai liked Esther and she won his favor. He lost no time in beginning her beauty treatment of massage and special diet. He gave her the best place in the harem and assigned 7 young women specially chosen from the royal palace to serve her. Now, on the advice of Mordecai, Esther had kept it secret that she was Jewish. Every day Mordecai would walk back and forth in the front of the courtyard of the harem in order to find out how she was getting along and what was going to happen to her. The regular beauty treatment for the woman lasted a year. Massages with oil of myrrh for 6 months and with oil of balsam for 6 more. After that, each woman would be taken in turn to King Xerxes. When she went from the harem to the palace, she could wear whatever she wanted. She would go there in the evening, and next morning she would be taken to another harem and put in the care of Shashgaz, the eunuch in charge of the king's concubines. He would not go to the king again unless he liked her enough to ask for her by name. The time came for Esther to go to the king. Esther, the daughter of Abihail, and the cousin of Mordecai, who had adopted her as his daughter. Esther, admired by everyone who saw her. When her turn came, she wore just what Haggai, the eunuch in charge of the harem, advised her to wear. So, in Xerxes' 7th year as king, in the 10th month, the month of Tebeth, Esther was brought to King Xerxes in the royal palace. The king liked her more than any of the other women, and more than any of the others she won his favor and affection. He placed the royal crown on her head and made her queen in place of Vashti. Then the king gave a great banquet in Esther's honor and invited all his officials and administrators. He proclaimed a holiday for the whole empire and distributed gifts worthy of a king. Meanwhile, Mordecai had been appointed by the king to an administrative position. As for Esther, she had still not let it be known that she was Jewish. Mordecai had told her not to tell anyone, and she obeyed him in this, just as she had obeyed him when she was a little girl under his care. During the time that Mordecai held office in the palace, Bigthana and Teresh, 2 of the palace eunuchs who guarded the entrance of the king's rooms, became hostile to King Xerxes and plotted to assassinate him. Mordecai learned about it and told Queen Esther, who then told the king what Mordecai had found out. There was an investigation, and it was discovered that the report was true. So both men were hanged on the gallows. The king ordered an account of this to be written down in the official records of the empire. Esther chapter 3. Some time later, King Xerxes promoted a man named Haman to the position of prime minister. Haman was the son of Hammedatha, a descendant of Agag. The king ordered all the officials in his service to show their respect for Haman by kneeling and bowing to him. They all did so, except for Mordecai, who refused to do it. The other officials in the royal service asked him why he was disobeying the king's command. Day after day they urged him to give in, but he would not listen to them. I am a Jew, he explained, and I cannot bow to Haman. So they told Haman about this, wondering if he would tolerate Mordecai's conduct. Haman was furious when he realized that Mordecai was not going to kneel and bow to him. And when he learned that Mordecai was a Jew, he decided to do more than punish Mordecai alone. He made plans to kill every Jew in the whole Persian Empire. In the 12th year of King Xerxes' rule, in the first month, the month of Nisan, Haman ordered the lots to be cast. Purim, they were called, to find out the right day and month to carry out his plot. The 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar, was decided on. So Haman told the king, there is a certain race of people scattered all over your empire and found in every province. They observe customs that are not like those of any other people. Moreover, they do not obey the laws of the empire. So it is not in your best interest to tolerate them. If it please your majesty, issue a decree that they are to be put to death. If you do, I guarantee that I will be able to put 375 tons of silver into the royal treasury for the administration of the empire. The king took off his ring, which was used to stamp proclamations and make them official, and gave it to the enemy of the Jewish people, Haman son of Hammedatha, the descendant of Agag. The king told him, the people and their money are yours. Do as you like with them. So on the 13th day of the first month, Haman called the king's secretaries and dictated a proclamation to be translated into every language and system of writing used in the empire, and to be sent to all the rulers, governors, and officials. It was issued in the name of King Xerxes and stamped with his ring. Runners took this proclamation to every province of the empire. It contained the instructions that on a single day, the 13th day of Adar, all Jews, young and old, women and children, were to be killed. They were to be slaughtered without mercy, and their belongings were to be taken. The contents of the proclamation were to be made public in every province, so that everyone would be prepared when that day came. At the king's command, the decree was made public in the capital city of Susa. The runners carried the news to the provinces. The king and Haman sat down and had a drink while the city of Susa was being thrown into confusion. Esther chapter 4. When Mordecai learned of all that had been done, he tore his clothes in anguish. Then he dressed in sackcloth, covered his head with ashes, and walked through the city, wailing loudly and bitterly, until he came to the entrance of the palace. He did not go in because no one wearing sackcloth was allowed inside. Throughout all the provinces, wherever the king's proclamation was made known, there was loud mourning among the Jews. They fasted, wept, wailed, and most of them put on sackcloth and lay in ashes. When Esther's servant women and eunuchs told her what Mordecai was doing, she was deeply disturbed. She sent Mordecai some clothes to put on instead of the sackcloth, but he would not accept them. Then she called Hathach, one of the palace eunuchs appointed as her servant by the king, and told him to go to Mordecai and find out what was happening and why. Hathach went to Mordecai in the city square at the entrance of the palace. Mordecai told him everything that had happened to him and just how much money Haman had promised to put in the royal treasury if all the Jews were killed. He gave Hathach a copy of the proclamation that had been issued in Susa ordering the destruction of the Jews. Mordecai asked him to take it to Esther, explain the situation to her, and have her go and plead with the king and beg him to have mercy on her people. Hathach did this, and Esther gave him his message to take back to Mordecai. If any one man or woman goes to the inner court and sees the king without being summoned, the person must die. That is the law. Everyone from the king's advisers to the people in the provinces knows that. There's only one way to get around this law. If the king holds out his gold scepter to someone, then that person's life is spared. But it has been a month since the king sent for me. When Mordecai received Esther's message, he sent her this warning. Don't imagine that you are safer than any other Jew just because you are in the royal palace. If you keep quiet at a time like this, help will come from heaven to the Jews, and they will be saved. But you will die, and your father's family will come to an end. Yet, who knows, maybe it was for a time like this that you were made queen. Esther sent Mordecai this reply. Go and get all the Jews in Susa together. Hold a fast and pray for me. Don't eat or drink anything for 3 days and nights. My servant woman and I will be doing the same. After that I will go to the king even though it is against the law. If I must die for doing it, I will die. Mordecai then left and did everything that Esther had told him to do. Esther chapter 5. At that time 2 prophets, Haggai and Zechariah son of Iddo, began to speak in the name of the God of Israel to the Jews who lived in Judah and Jerusalem. When Zerubbabel son of Shealtiel and Joshua son of Jehozadak heard their messages, they began to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem, and the 2 prophets helped them. Almost at once, Governor Tattenai of west of Euphrates, Shethar-bozenai, and their fellow officials came to Jerusalem and demanded, Who gave you orders to build this temple and equip it? They also asked for the names of all the men who were helping build the temple. But God was watching over the Jewish leaders, and the Persian officials decided to take no action until they could write to Emperor Darius and receive a reply. This is the report that they sent to the emperor, to Emperor Darius. May you rule in peace. Your Majesty should know that we went to the province of Judah and found that the temple of the great God is being rebuilt with large stone blocks and with wooden beams set in the wall. The work is being done with great care and is moving ahead steadily. We then asked the leaders of the people to tell us who had given them authority to rebuild the temple and to equip it. We also asked them their names so that we could inform you who the leaders of this work are. They answered, We are servants of the God of heaven and earth, and we are rebuilding the temple which was originally built and equipped many years ago by a powerful king of Israel. But because our ancestors made the God of heaven angry, he let them be conquered by King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylonia, a king of the Chaldean dynasty. The temple was destroyed and the people were taken into exile in Babylonia. Then, in the first year of the reign of King Cyrus as emperor of Babylonia, Cyrus issued orders for the temple to be rebuilt. He restored the gold and silver temple utensils which Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple in Jerusalem and had placed in the temple in Babylon. Emperor Cyrus turned these utensils over to a man named Sheshbazzar, whom he appointed governor of Judah. The emperor told him to take them and return them to the temple in Jerusalem, and to rebuild the temple where it had stood before. So Sheshbazzar came and laid its foundation. Construction has continued from then until the present, but it is not still finished. Now, if it please your Majesty, have a search made in the royal records in Babylon to find whether or not Emperor Cyrus gave orders for this temple in Jerusalem to be rebuilt, and then inform us what your will is in this matter. May the Lord bless us abundantly, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.